Well, hey there to everyone that's out there. How you holding up? We wanted to take a minute to break uh, some of our media silence. If you follow us, probably recognize that we're posting a little bit less than usual these days. Anyhow, we wanted to break radio silence and reach out to everyone and say just a few things. Number one, we're in Northern Virginia still. We're, for the time being, suspending all of our travel plans. We want to follow the CDC and the government guidelines for safety and wellness. Many of you know, have a 15-year career uh, in the medical field before the call to missions, and so that's something that we respect deeply, and it's something that we are acutely aware of what this is going to look like in the next couple of weeks. To our friends in hospitals and to our friends who are nurses and doctors and respiratory therapists and everyone, physical therapists, we're praying for you. We love you guys. We're praying for you. We know it's not easy, but we're home. We're okay, and we're not going to be traveling. We felt like it was very, very important to go ahead and mention that, since a lot of you were aware of our plans to travel. A lot of you were part of our plans to travel, but we are, as of now, suspending everything for the next few weeks. Homeschool is continuing. It's not easy. The kids are still learning and having a blast. Um, so that's going pretty well. I myself have been self quarantined for the last, I think it's 10 or 11 days. Miriam and I made that decision based on the fact that I was in meetings and I was around people who were around other people who tested positive. And so we're talking about second and third hand exposure, and the likelihood being fairly remote, but there existing the possibility that I had been exposed. And so we made the decision to separate myself. But I got a lot of books. I've got my Bible. I've I've got the internet. So we're doing good. And thankfully, I was a pretty bad kid growing up. So I got used to being grounded for the majority of my high school career. So this isn't too far off from what I grew up with. I'm teasing. I have great parents, but I was a bit of a pill. I wanted to encourage you guys with just a couple thoughts. So number one, I want to tip my hat to every single faith community leader who has taken advantage of technology and the time to steward this moment in history well, and to feed the people in their sphere of influence with good, solid spiritual truth. That is commendable. That is outstanding. My hat tips off to you. To everyone who has been coming alongside their faith community leaders, I tell you what, the joyful participation of a congregation can make or break the spirit of a leader. So, to everyone who has come alongside their pastor and shared their videos, or showed up on time for a service, who has really gone out of their way to say, hey, you know what? We're all in this together. My hat goes off to you as well. Which brings me back to how I started this video. Was And that was the idea that this quarantine season would really be an outstanding opportunity for me to not just sit back, but take a step back to intentionally and aggressively listen. And what I mean by that is not to just fill the void with plan B and C and D and E and F, and let's continue doing the normal activities, and let's push as hard as we can, and let's fill the void with even more noise than before. There's this great song by U2. It's called Every Breaking Wave. And so one of the lyrics says, I thought I heard the captain's voice, but it's hard to listen while you preach. Like every broken wave on the shore, this is as far as I could reach. And I thought, wow, this is a good word for all of us. There's some great imagery here. There's a beautiful reference to Job out of the Bible. There's this part in the end of Job where the Lord is asking this man, where were you when I created the foundations of the earth? Where were you when I told the waves, thus far and no further shall you reach? And the point is that, I mean, waves are incredible. If you've ever seen pictures or videos of, waves breaking on a beach or breaking against a cliffside, or the lighthouse pictures where the waves are like 20 feet tall. Waves are powerful, but they have their limit. What we can take away from this is that our words are influential and they can be powerful too. But guess what? They've also got their limit. We see the result when we continue forcing our words into our lives and into every situation, and we find a void, or we find a silence that's a little uncomfortable. We're tempted to just fill it with words, whether it's our own words or our favorite preacher, which I have problems with that, but anyways, you have a pastor, you don't have 17 pastors, but that's a different topic. We fill the void with words, and when we just fill it with words and words and words and more words, what happens? Well, we go back to the first part of that lyric, and it says, I thought I heard the captain's voice, but it's hard to listen while you preach. And that's not a word against preachers. That's not a word against anyone. It's a word for all of us. We've got to learn to steward the silence a little bit better. So whether we realize it or not, it is important for us to recognize and understand that many of us, if not all of us, are in some kind of mourning process. You're mourning the loss of social freedom, our business plans, our economic plans, our ministry plans. We're mourning. And when we are quick to run at someone who is mourning, and we fill that space with even good things, words of hope, words of affirmation, words of promise from the Bible, without acknowledging the pain and sitting in it for a moment and saying, this is horrible. This sucks. And I'm sorry. And if need be, maybe even crying for a minute. And we jump straight to, in our world of Christian leadership, Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for a hope and a future. Yeah, you're not wrong. We have to acknowledge that a major part of God's plan for blessing his nation, his children at that point, was going through the exile. not around it, not under it, not over it, not skirting it. He was saying, I know the plans I have for you, and they include the exile. They include this horrible, inconvenient, difficult monstrosity of a situation that you hate. But, and if you read verses, everyone quotes Jeremiah 29:11, but they don't read 12 and 13, because he talks about, you will go through the exile, and I will restore you. And in that day, you will seek me with all your heart, and I will hear you, and I will be your God, and you will be my people. In the 1950s, there was this commercial for this product called Brylcreem. It was a men's hair product. But they're the first ones that came out with the slogan and coined the phrase, "A little dab will do ya." And the idea is that this product was so effective and so powerful that more than a little bit would actually be too much. And I'm afraid that I surely don't want to offend anyone, and I surely don't want to add insult to injury in this difficult time. I want to be as sensitive as possible. But if I'm honest, a trend that I've seen in current Christianity, and this is not a condemnation of any one denomination or Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, Pentecostal, Evangelical, I don't care. We're all kind of guilty. We tend to think, like, when it comes to Jesus and the Bible, well, a little dab will do you. It's not like that. I love you version, but I hate what the verse of the day mentality has done to our understanding of what the Bible has to say as a larger overarching narrative. We can quote Jeremiah 29:11, and it's awesome. Don't get me wrong, it is awesome to know that he has a plan for us, and that plan includes a future and a hope. But if my understanding of God is that he is going to protect me from all difficulty and absolve me of all responsibility, and all I have to do is quote one verse out of context and my life will be okay, when something like this happens, I'm going to have a crisis of faith. I'm going to have a crisis of identity. I'm going to have a crisis of every kind there is, because Jeremiah 29:11, in that false understanding of, well, he's just going to give me a good plan and a good future and a good hope, and I don't really need to understand anything else, that's not going to get me through this kind of a situation. But if I can read and quote Jeremiah 29:11, understanding that things didn't get out of control and crazy, and so God is really powerful and he has to make it better somehow and redeem it. When I read Jeremiah 29:11 and I recite to myself that he knows the plans he has for me, those plans that he knows include the inconvenience, the decrease, the pain, the suffering. He knows all of it. And it's all part of his plan for our life. And that if I can understand that his future and his hope for me include the bad stuff, that just might get me through. In the New Testament, Paul tells us that trials and suffering, endurance of these things is what produces perseverance. And perseverance produces strength of character, and strength of character produces our undying sense of hope. So I just want to encourage you, get a larger sense of what God is speaking to us by leaning into the silence. Let's listen aggressively to God through what the Bible tells us. Let's listen aggressively to one another, and let's pray for one another and really do it. Not just praying hands emoji and then back to binge watching. I hope I'm not coming across as holier than anyone or preachy. I want us all to make it. I have a strong conviction that the only way we're going to make it is if we know what we're up against. So I think that's it. I'm going to log off before this gets too long. But I just, like I said, I want us to make it. I want us to know what we're getting into when we decide to follow Jesus. And I want us to know that God's plan for us includes all of this stuff. I've got a lot of questions about the future. We are committed to missions and to Ecuador. And I've got a lot of questions about what that's going to look like. We have more questions than answers. We're not giving up. We are committed, but we're letting God take the lead, and we're trusting that when we said, yeah, we'll go to Ecuador, that this was part of God's plan for us. Please let us know how we can be praying for you. Comment or direct message. And if you don't tell us, we'll just pray as we feel led, but we will continue praying, and let's grow up a little bit through this. Let's commit to growing up. Let's commit to reading a little bit more. Let's commit to listening, and let's let God talk to us and step into the future and the hope that God has for us through this difficult time. All right. Talk to you later. Love you.